Hi, I'm Allison, one of the co-founders of Knitrino, and we're excited to learn to knit with you. In this lesson, we'll cover how Knitrino works, using the pattern, some of the basic terminology in knitting, how to wind your yarn, and then we'll move on to knitting. Historically, knitting patterns were designed for print. That led to the use of many abbreviations and shorthand notations that makes learning to read a knitting pattern a lot like learning a new language. We believe knitting patterns can be friendlier and easier to use, a lot more like Google Maps versus the Atlas. Once you've installed Knitrino, you'll come into the pattern shop. This is where you can buy any of our friendly patterns that are currently available. For this class, we'll be using the Haiku hat. The pattern details screen gives you important information about the pattern, like what sizes are available, what the finished dimensions of each size are, what yarn is suggested, as well as what needles are required to make the pattern. When you're ready to get started on a pattern, you'll first need to create a project. Because we show only one size at a time, the first step is selecting your size. You can also customize your chart colors by clicking on the yarn color dot, increasing the intensity, and selecting your desired color. We don't recommend dark colors, as that can make it hard to see the symbols when you get to the chart screen. Click the check mark to save your color choice. When you're ready to get started, just tap Let's Go. From the project overview screen, you can see all the details of the pattern for your size. Each project is broken into sections, though some projects may have only one section. The sections are numbered to indicate the order in which you should work them. In this case, the first section is a swatch. A swatch is a small sample of the pattern we're going to knit. The main reason we knit a swatch is to check what our tension is like, or our stitches per inch, also known as gauge. If we don't have the correct gauge, our finished object won't have the correct measurements and won't fit our head in this case. You can fit the chart to your screen by clicking the yellow Fit to Width button, or customize the zoom by clicking the gray Zoom button. The project or chart screen gives you a visual representation of your knitting, as well as row-by-row instructions. Don't worry too much about what the symbols mean right now. We'll cover this in more depth later. You can advance your row by swiping from right to left on the green instruction box, or by clicking the black checkbox or any of the numbers on the right-hand side. You can click on any stitch in the highlighted or active row to see what it is and a video of how to do it. Click on the Support tab to easily send us an email and also to access this course. There are two construction modes that are commonly used. They're called working flat or back and forth and working in the round. The conventions for reading the chart are different depending on which construction method you're using. We'll use both in this course. For the swatch, we'll knit back and forth, and for the hat, we'll knit in the round. Don't worry too much about this right now. We'll cover it more in depth later.
Knitting is done using yarn and 2 needles. Yarn comes in different forms, like balls that you can pull from the center, or often it's in hanks or skeins, which you will need to untwist and wind yourself into a ball. Yarn comes in different weights, like this fingering weight that's pretty thin and light, to medium-sized weights like DK and worsted, to heavier weights like Aran or bulky or chunky. Needles come in various forms too. There are straight knitting needles with ends on the end so your knitting doesn't slip off. There are circular knitting needles, which are still two needles joined by a wire. There are double pointed needles, which have no ends, so you can go round and round, as you'll see later. You can knit using straight needles, and that is called knitting flat or back and forth, where you produce an item that is something like a scarf. Then there are needles that allow you to knit in the round, like circular and double pointed needles, which you just go round and round in one continuous path and end up with a garment like a sweater or a hat. The yarn very often comes in this form called a skein or a hank. And you want to look for the end that's got another end tucked into it. And just open it up. You want to keep your hand through the hole here and unfold it. And it's a big giant circle. And you'll see that it's tied up. You want to inspect it and make sure that all of the strands of yarn are laying neatly, like where they're tied, and you don't want to have like some over on this side where they don't belong. So it's great if you have a spare set of hands, like a friend or a family member that can hold the yarn like this for you. But if you don't, you can also put it around a chair. My chair is just a little too small, but I think it will still work. You want to cut these. Now, one of them should have some yarn tied to it. And that's where you're going to start. And you want to just start by winding it around your fingers. I'll show you. Yeah, you can see. There's a piece that it's just kind of twisted here. It's not laying quite the way it should be. I'm gonna see. Okay. So starting again, you just want to start wrapping it around 2 fingers, and you're going to keep going this direction for a while until you've got a substantial little bit of yarn there. And then after a while, when it feels like it's getting to be kind of a clump there, you're going to take that off of your fingers and start going the other direction, perpendicular to that. And do that for about the same amount of time. Always keeping an eye on your yarn that it's not going anywhere it shouldn't. And then after you've got those 2 directions going, I like to kind of turn it at an angle, a diagonal to that. And you just want to keep moving it. You want to try to make it kind of spherical. And so you just move the yarn. I'm going to go back to the original direction. And you just want to keep changing directions to kind of form a little ball from your yarn.